right. Hey, guys. Welcome back to Doc Talk. I am Owen Jones, your host, and I've got my co-host next to me, Mr. Jason Parrott.
Good morning, everybody.
So we're going to continue our frequently asked questions series. And one of those that popped up was, do we have to remove our dock in the winter? When do we not have to? And it's something we talked about a little bit when we were comparing stationary and floating on the last, the first part of this series. It's a good question. I mean, some of you don't have this issue because you're in, Florida and you don't have to worry about ice. But for those of us that have freezing lakes, ponds, rivers, ice is an issue. Do we need to remove it or don't you? So, I'll just say this. As a starting point, we recommend you remove it. I hate to disappoint. It's true. I mean, it's true. In the last episode, we talked about how my dad's neighbor had a Tommy dock in for 15 years or 16 years or whatever it was. And then the next year, the ice wiped it out. So, it's just if the right variables come to play, it'll take out the dock. And so if you're going to leave it in, you have to be aware that that's a risk that you're taking on. There are some pointers if you're not going to remove it, if you do want to leave it in. Well, let's just start out with the variables before we get into how to prepare it if you're going to leave it in. Let's just kind of go through who we wouldn't recommend leave it in, I guess, specifically. So if you've got a big open area, like a really big open area, you get a lot of wind coming at it during the spring, during the summer, just a lot of wind, wave action in general, it's probably a very bad idea for you to leave it in. I'm just going to tell you, I don't think any of the tips we're going to give you today are going to save it.
Yeah, location's very key. Where you're at on that body of water.
Yeah. If you've got a little cove, if you're a little shielded, then potentially, using some of these tips will keep it preserved for a long time, and you'll be able to not have that, headache, I guess. Mm-hmm. But again, we do remove, we recommend you remove it. I know my family doesn't remove ours up north, but it's in a channel that doesn't get any wind. And so the ice is able to melt away from the dock, gradually, rather than big chunks break off and the wind push it into the dock. That's usually what takes out.
That's what takes them out.
Yeah, big sheets of ice, a lot of inertia. Mm-hmm. As far as people that don't have those variables, one of the things that we would recommend is you inspect it pretty regularly. Whether you have a situation without a ton of wind, there's other things, right? Snow and ice and other things.
Ice
that
buildup.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the weights. I mean, especially like in the North Woods, I mean, they're getting
a few inches of snow in the north.
Well, we don't have any here.
We have none.
That's true. But yeah, the weight, the excess weight 24 hours a day that occurs from ice and snow, I would recommend that you clear it off. It's better for the decking, especially if you're decking cedar.
With decking,
that'll
organic,
prematurely age it very
age
quickly. So yeah, just shoveling it off, keeping the weight off, keeping the water off the deck the whole winter is probably, I would recommend that.
And there are plenty of systems out there where the decking is removable. Obviously, if that's an option, make sure that decking comes out of there regardless of what kind of material it is.
Yeah, so that's, what we would call drop-in panels. And there are many, we have that system. A lot of other companies have that system. In general, I would say remove those for sure. If you have drop-ins, it's not that inconvenient to remove them. I don't even, you don't have to put it in your garage or something like that. If you can just stack it on shore and throw a tarp over it.
With a tarp,
you're good. It's an easy solution. And then you don't have to worry about the snow buildup. So that is an easy way to do it. I know.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say one thing that also happens is settling over winter. So you can have some shifting and some settling. And it's important when you're inspecting it that you're checking that your bolts are still tight, that everything is still locked in place. Mm-hmm. because that can damage, maybe not ruin a dock, but it can certainly damage it.
Definitely.
What were you going to say, Jason?
Well, just with the removal of panels, that's a good opportunity to inspect all the fasteners on those and make sure everything's tightened up, so you don't have to worry about that when you go back for the reinstall in the spring of those panels. So, yeah, checking all the hardware, making sure all your frames and everything's in alignment. Just good practice every year to ensure that you're going to have a good experience the following spring.
Yeah. So we talk about protecting it from the elements, and Jason was recommending before this that you just put out heated blankets,
propane heaters, lots of propane, bullet heaters.
I would just get like
blankets.
a 100-foot extension cable with a bunch of chained together power strips and just pray that it doesn't burn your cabin down. Don't do any of that. But seriously, obviously, like if tarping it would help protect.
You do see a lot of that more and more, especially when I'm out ice fishing. I see a lot of tarps and whatnot on certain docks.
Yeah, and those people, like, usually if you have a tarp designated for it, a lot of them will like cut holes for the pipe and stuff. So it's like really easy. It has the pattern, and you just lay it on it. It's super easy and won't blow off. So yeah, I mean, I think protecting it is wise. Obviously, part of that is removing the decking if you have that option as well. And there is actually a new option for people that want to leave them in. I would say newer. Option.
Yeah, I'd say within the last
it's like 7
years
they've become more yeah. So they're called water circulators. Some of you may have heard of them called like mud fans is what I've heard, but I think officially they're called water circulators. They're basically just little electric fans that attach to the pipe of either the dock, or they can be, sometimes they're separate.
Yeah.
You obviously have a power source for it. Hopefully that power source is a GFCI, obviously, to be safe. And that'll keep, it won't prevent, I guess it depends on where you are in the country. If you're in an area with pretty mild winters, it'll probably prevent the ice from freezing at all around it. I would say here, it'll just keep the ice very thin, right? Like
keeps the water moving underneath it.
Yeah. It'll keep the water moving, and instead of getting to a foot or a foot and a half or whatever of thickness, as what happens here, keep it to like an inch or a half inch or whatever. Important thing to note that people don't think about if you're going to use a water circulator is I highly recommend you have some signage posted for ATV drivers, people snowmobiling, ice fishermen, some bright signage telling them that you have one running, because it does create a thin layer of ice in a fairly large area.
That ice is compromised for sure.
And it's not noticeable, right? These people wouldn't expect it. And so just to prevent something bad happening and or opening you up to liability, I would post some signage
for sure.
As far as like other systems, so we've just been talking about stationary.
There is another system.
There is another option, yes. So and we do feel that it's becoming more popular up here. We talked last time floating versus stationary and how floating was primarily a Southern cultural thing, and it's not been as popular historically in the northern regions of the country. That's sort of started to shift because floating is one of the few things. Well, I guess it depends on the floating system. If you're using fixed standoff arms for your connection to shore on a floating system, it absolutely could stay in. Because it'll ride over the ice if you did get a situation where a sheet, traveled towards it. So I think if you're really wanting to leave it in, I think floating is the way to go.
Definitely.
It just so happens we have a system now that can help you with that. So you can check that out on our website. And
floating eliminates the pain points, because if you ask most owners of cabins and lakefront property that are removing and installing their dock year after year. That is their number one pain point.
Yeah.
They have to find people,
Yeah.
get them there to help put it in, and find people again to assist in removal. So yeah, with floating, it's a one-time install and that's it.
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
Yeah. I'm definitely one of those people that's transitioning into being a floating guy now. Cause now that we have a modular system and knowing that it's like a one and done kind of, you know, you don't have to sit there and babysit it. That's really valuable to me, but, yeah. So anyway, you know, if you guys have any other questions, in regards to leaving your dock in, obviously you can leave a comment here on YouTube or, message us, email us, call us, whatever it is. We're happy to walk through your specific scenario. Do you have anything else you want to add, Jason?
No, just, everybody has a different application. And like you mentioned, feel free to give us a call. We'll guide you as best as we can, depending on the body of water and your location. And
yeah, it doesn't have to be our system.
No,
We'll
it
help you
doesn't have
guys
to be.
out.
We'll
So
help you out.
just let us know if you have some questions. As
Absolutely.
always, like our page, our YouTube channel, follow us, comment, share it on Facebook when you see it. We're going to keep posting useful, frequently asked questions here in this series for a few more episodes anyway, and then we'll start diving into some other stuff. So we appreciate you guys watching. Have a good one.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.